we live in a world that's constantly changing, so we have to think different. And so that requires us to pivot and to do that. And so there's this term called functional fixedness, and that's basically how we approach things the same way, right? So it's like to get out of that mode, we have to disrupt some habits and patterns, and what we can do to experience that is have new experiences.
Welcome to Season 3 of the Amani Experience Podcast. In this podcast, you will experience wisdom, advice, and stories from creatives all over the world. Your host is the award-winning Amani Roberts, who is a DJ, music producer, professor, author, and undercover gamer. On the show, we love to share the stories of creative professionals, especially people who have gone from the corporate life to the creative life. Once again, welcome to the Amani Experience Podcast.
Welcome to episode 131 of the Amani Experience Podcast. For this show, we have Dr. Steve Routh with us from the Epic Impact Society. Three of my favorite things about our conversation. First, I love how Steve said he is in the practice now of trying workshops at conferences that he would normally never try. I think that's a great way to kind of change habits, shake things up, and I'm going to try to do that in some upcoming conferences that I'm attending. So that's the first thing I love. Second, when Steve talked to us about establishing a pause practice and being present around people we love, I think that's just very timely advice. And that's another thing that I'm going to try to do, pause and kind of rest and just be with myself because we are so very busy, but we need to pause if we want to be at our most creative selves. And then finally, I was just really impressed with how Steve juggles being a professor at Pepperdine with his other ventures and, different jobs and things he has to do. He's a very busy man, and he still juggles being a professor, which takes up a lot of time with everything else he does. So I was just impressed, and I want to learn from him and figure out how I can do it at the level that he's doing it. Thank you very much for listening. I think you're really going to enjoy the show. This show is being sponsored by my new book. It's called DJs Mean Business. I have some new news. The pre-order is now available on Amazon. So if you go to Amazon.com, type in DJs Mean Business, my name, Amani Roberts, it'll pop up there. Please place a pre-order. The book will be out April 14th. If you pre-order it and send me like your receipt or whatever, email me at podcast@Amani Experience. I'll send you a surprise. So do that. Also, to get eligible for other specials as well, you can text 33777. 33777 and the words DJ Amro, and I'll get you on the list and give you additional surprises as well. If you want to reach me, follow me on all social media at Amani Experience. Follow us on Patreon, which is patreon.com/Amani Experience. And I think that's it. Yeah. All right. It's time to get to the show. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the episode. I would like to welcome Dr. Steve Routh to the Amani Experience Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
We are excited to have you here. We do a geographical check-in every time we start the show. Right now, we're in our mobile studio, Manhattan Beach, California. Mm-hmm. Tell the listeners, where do you currently reside?
I reside in Colorado.
All right. So You're in Colorado. Where did you grow up?
Northern California.
Oh, really?
Outside of Sacramento.
Okay. So outside of Sacramento. Once you grew up and graduated from high school, you found your way down to Southern California, if I recall correctly, right?
Correct. Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I grew up in Northern California and started out in college up in Northern California, and then decided I wanted to move to Southern California.
Yes.
Explored some options and really was drawn to go to Pepperdine. So ended up getting accepted at Pepperdine and transferred down to Malibu.
The good place to be, Malibu.
Yes.
Got your bachelor's in communications.
Yeah, that's right.
Is it true what they say that Pepperdine is one of the, well, I feel it is, but I'm sure you might agree or disagree, one of the most beautiful campuses in the world. It's picturesque.
Yes, and I'm biased, but yes. It's pretty gorgeous. So
I agree. You finished your undergraduate work. What did you do then?
So I worked in the music industry. So I did some time there in music management, promotion. And then after a few years of doing that, I decided I wanted to get my master's. So ended up enrolling at Fuller Seminary up in Pasadena. I did that for a period of time. Master's in theology, focusing on leadership as my concentration. After that experience, I decided at that point, looking at various career paths, and decided I wanted to go into higher education.
All right.
So landed in the corporate and community relations area at Cal Lutheran University, and then transferred over to Pepperdine doing a similar role for a number of years. So actually working in higher education, but working with businesses out in the community. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So you continued to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And when did you start to actually be a professor at Pepperdine as well?
Yeah, so I was in the corporate and community relations role for quite a while, and decided I wanted to pursue my doctorate. So looked at various options, and it was right in front of me at Pepperdine, actually. It's funny how I keep being drawn to Pepperdine. Yeah. Wonderful program in organizational leadership. And so enrolled in that program, started teaching towards the end of the program. Let's see, it was in 2016.
Okay.
Yeah, so about 4 years.
4 years.
Mm-hmm.
As a professor now, myself, for almost 2 years,
yeah.
I'm curious to hear, what is your favorite part about being a professor?
I love creating unique experiences for students in the classroom. I'm really big on experiential learning. So, our education system, as we grow up, there's a certain flow and a certain format. And since I teach creativity and innovation,
yes.
I want it to be authentic. So it's not just talking about it, but experiencing it. So the way I try to conduct the activities, the flow, the lectures, and all that, I try to do a disruptive approach. So it's really great.
What do you feel is maybe your most unique experiential activity you do in the classroom that the students just love? You could pick two if you like, because I'm sure there's plenty.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple examples. One, actually, we did this morning.
All right.
I like to take them on field trips, so I took them on a field trip to a really innovative architecture design for a studio, just so that they can get firsthand experience of what it's like to be in a culture like that. So Kingdom Industry out in Thousand Oaks is a wonderful place. So I took my class there. So taking them out to experiences, and then in the classroom, really practicing each week an activity that connects to the skill of associating, which is essentially linking the previously unlinked, and to create something new. And so I'll throw an activity together where it's they have random supplies in a bag, and they have to create a prototype of an unmet consumer need, for example, or creating a new sport or a new smart piece of smart clothing using things that were never related before to create something new. So those kind of activities really just help the students kind of step out and kind of discover their creative potential.
Yeah,
so.
Sounds interesting. Make me want to come and sit in the class and take it too.
You're invited.
Thank you.
Yeah.
As you continue to teach, you do several other things. You also founded, and are now president of the Epic Impact Society. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the Epic Impact Society is a nonprofit organization that produces arts and education-based experiences to encourage and catalyze creativity for personal, professional, and social transformation. So social innovation is a huge part of what we do. Mm-hmm. We have 4 pillars of the organization. The first is creating an annual summit. It's the Epic International Summit, where it's gathering leaders across all of various countries to come together to disrupt the status quo, disconnect. So we have a part where we disconnect from technology for 3 days to connect with each other and discover creative potential through workshops. So that's one pillar. We have an award show where we honor local nonprofits. The third pillar is we have what we call Epic Conversations. So we have these one-on-one conversations with industry leaders and engage the audience there. And then we do what we call Epic Impact Projects, which we have one coming up this weekend. And it's basically conducting creativity workshops in the community with local nonprofits to address community issues, to come up with new solutions. So.
And what inspires you to create Epic?
It's been an interesting, just an organic evolution of just how the work I've been doing. This really started when I was in my doctoral program. I started attending various conferences and loved the experiences. But I saw a couple things that I wish were there that I didn't see in other conferences. And one was something on the West Coast, because I was traveling a lot.
Right.
And number two would be the disconnect part, because I started doing research in the impact of technology overload, or it's really information overload, and how that can stifle our creativity, because we get to a point where we can't absorb, so much information. And so I thought, this would be really great to have something on the West Coast, internationally focused, because one of the things that's so essential to creativity is the cross-pollination of ideas and industries. So started working on that in 2013, and it's a slow evolution, slow process.
Yeah.
So
here we are.
And here we are.
I'm excited to be able to attend this March, so I'm looking forward to that. Now, if the listeners didn't notice, he said he lives in Colorado, but he also teaches at Pepperdine.
Yeah.
How do you do that and balance your time? I'm astounded. Tell us.
Yes, it's a creative challenge, right? So
this is true.
So it's a blend, right? So I teach in person in Malibu, but I also teach online. So I designed the online creativity course for Pepperdine in the Graduate Business School for a variety of different degree programs. So that helps, right? So you can teach, essentially anywhere for that. But just working out my schedule with the university, making sure the classes are all kind of clumped together if they're in person. And the flight's not that bad. It's about 2 hours.
Okay.
And
like a commute.
But I used to live in Orange County, so the funny thing is I joke that it's a shorter commute. Because it would take me 3 hours from Malibu to get.
Wow.
So,
Well, props to you for managing all that. Like, I want to do that too. That's exciting. So now, how would you summarize where you are today, your life, in 30 seconds or less?
Summarize my life in 30 seconds.
Like where you are.
Yes. So I would say that I'm in a space where I'm able to collaborate with a lot of amazing people to create experiences that are transformational. And so that's the kind of the space, whether it be in the classroom, whether that be in the community with, for example, Epic and various workshops that I do. It's really collectively working with people that are inspiring to create these unique experiences so that people can have those aha moments.
Interesting.
Yeah.
In your opinion, what's important for creative professionals such as yourself, myself, to succeed in today's business environment?
A couple of things that come to mind would be flexible thinking, right? We live in a world that's constantly changing, so we have to think different. And so that requires us to pivot and to do that. And so there's this term called functional fixedness, and that's basically how we approach things the same way, right? So it's like to get out of that mode, we have to disrupt some habits, some patterns, and what we can do to experience that is have new experiences. So my biggest thing is go to conferences you haven't been to before, for example. Try workshops that typically are out of your lane. Meet people that you normally don't work with in various industries and have those kind of conversations, because that's where the magic happens, is at that intersection of diversity and those kind of conversations.
Yeah,
so,
very true, very true. What is your definition of leadership?
I'd say for me, my definition of leadership is being a role model who inspires people to another level, to see their potential so that they can become their own leaders and be inspired to achieve more than they could on their own. Yeah.
Excellent definition. And then in addition, what's your definition of creativity?
This is the big debate. Well, there's various definitions that I align with, which is essentially novelty that has value or novelty that is useful. And so, there's never been such a need as today to be creative. And, there's surveys and there's stats about that. I think my biggest area of passion is to help people realize that they are creative. Everybody's creative.
Agreed.
And that is what's rewarding. When I talk to people in workshops or in the classroom is, I usually ask the question day one or at the beginning of a workshop, how many of you think you're creative? And maybe a few people, and that's the creative challenge, is to help people understand that they have that potential, to unlock that. So
Why do you feel so many people don't feel like they're creative? Like they kind of keep it hidden or just don't realize that they are?
right, because there's some myths out there that creativity equals the arts.
Yes.
And that is, I feel, part of my job as educator, professional, is to allow people to realize or to create those environments that it's to debunk that myth, basically.
Yeah.
And I think the education system, it's like set up in a format in a way that everybody's afraid to be wrong. There's only one right way, and that's not going to get us where we need to go with the new challenges and new problems. So it's to me, I've been in this space the last, I'd say, 4 or 5 years, where I've been really researching about disruption, and we hear about disruptive innovation, but there's also this area of personal disruption,
Right.
and I think that's really important. When somebody feels stagnant in their career, whatever that may be, it may be a good opportunity to disrupt their lives. There's intentional disruption, there's forced disruption. You know what I mean?
This is true.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
When you look at some of the most creative people what are some of the most common characteristics that they kind of share, if there are any?
they know how to pause.
Oh, okay.
And that is really important. And that would be another thing that would be my I guess recommendation for people, is to find your pause practice, your area that you step away from the daily grind, so to speak, and find that creative inspiration. So the people that I know have some kind of activity they do that inspires them, so they get charged up in their creativity. I think another thing would be they like to go to very diverse areas to find inspiration. So if they're in one industry, they don't like to stay in that. They'll go try things, and it's in those kind of experiences where they'll have these aha moments, and they'll say, "Oh, that's really great in this particular domain. How could I use that in mine?" And then that's where the new ideas happen. So I'd say that, and then the other thing would be they're very observant, but not just with what they see, but using their senses. And I think there's a great book, Innovator's DNA, and they talk about that as one of the 5 discovery skills. And I have that as part of my required reading in my class, because I think it's really important, because we get so focused on what we see to come up with ideas, but we can tap into more than that. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Excellent. You spent a lot of time in higher education. What was the turning point in your career when you figured, this is what I'm here to do and I'm all in?
I would say the very first day I started teaching. Yeah, that was because before that I was in the corporate community relations role. So I was kind of half in, behind the scenes at the university, and then out in the business and the community. So I love the whole environment of being part of inspiration and higher learning. But when I was in the classroom and being able to provide those experiences, like I mentioned earlier, and to see the connections and the nonverbal and different activities or different experiences, especially at the end of the semester, that's what was so rewarding. And I'm like, okay, that's what I love.
Yeah.
So.
I can totally agree with the class I teach. We do a lot of different things in traditional classes they might take. At the end of the semester, I bring my turntables in, and just to see their reaction and how they've grown and what they say. We do a lot of written activities, so I can totally understand how that would work. Why do you love what you do?
Because it always is changing. There's always something new. There's new possibilities. It doesn't get to one point where it's like, okay, been there, done that. It's going to be the same thing. There's always room to explore, and I like to explore. So that keeps me excited and motivated. And the other thing is I love working with people. So to be able to collaborate with people in different projects and like Epic and workshops, I think you have constantly room for new experiences.
Yeah.
So people and everybody brings their talents and their abilities, and there's always room for something new.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On the flip side, what is something that scares you?
That is a good question. I think in general, and maybe this is because I'm in this space so much and talking about this, but just I guess, and this is not like anti-technology at all, because I love technology and it's great and it's obviously benefits us. But I think the balance and the lack of human connection is something in general that I've noticed. And, it's kind of like, are we at a point where we're managing our devices, or are they managing us? And that's kind of where I've been kind of sitting with that question for myself, and then just asking people. And that's part of what we do at Epic too, is provide that space for reflection, right? Because it's not that technology is bad, it's up to us, how we manage it. And so I just have, what scares me is just kind of sometimes when you go to restaurants and you go to, gatherings, and people are not present. Yeah. And it's just like, where's the face-to-face, or the family's together and everybody's on their device? It's just kind of, I guess that kind of scares me in a sense, because we're meant for connection. Right. And so, so that's kind of interesting to observe as that's increasing.
I agree. Yeah. If someone came to you for advice, say, I noticed that my device is managing me, what is maybe one or two tips you would give them, in addition to unplugging, if possible, to help kind of work through that and be more present?
So obviously the unplugging part, but then not just unplugging, but looking back, like a point of reflection. Like, think of a time where you felt creative. Think of a time where you felt inspired. And then think what was going on in that moment. Okay, where were you at? And how could you create a plan to do that again? So it's kind of, that would be my advice, is to take just a moment of reflection. And, because sometimes people are just so busy and they don't think they have time to be creative, but that's so necessary, right? So to be able to look back and have that point of reflection so that they can recapture that, I think that will create the momentum to want to have more moments like that.
Yeah, good advice. Now, the industry that you're in, we're in creativity, creating these amazing experiential conferences, very crowded. How do you rise above the noise and distinguish yourself from the competition?
Right. So I think there's a couple key elements. One is the cross-pollination I mentioned before, because so many conferences, and I'm sure you've been to many as well, they're very domain-centric, like marketing conference and IT. And for Epic, it's all about the cross-pollination of industries around the world. So again, that creates an environment where you have those connections and insights. And then also the balance, because, having gone to quite a lot of conferences, I sometimes will leave with just information overload. Yeah. It's like nothing against the speakers or the conference theme, but it's just like you can only take so much. And so we really try to be very deliberate in having those moments of pause, so that's where it becomes really important, is because you need to digest the information, right? And then to also add those various experiential activities in between. So there's points of deep reflection. So I'd say that's one of our differentiating factors.
Yeah, an excellent one as well. How has a failure or an apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure of yours?
I don't have a favorite failure, but I will say one of the things that I've learned over the years is silencing the distractor, so to speak. Whether that be somebody that's questioning a project or whatever. And I think there's been times where I've worried about that comment or that doubt from somebody, or even a perceived doubt, and let that hold me back in areas where I feel like that's been a growth area for me.
Okay.
Just because that becomes sometimes a hurdle. And I don't know if I could have, at various projects or whatever, maybe I could have achieved more if I didn't have that distraction.
Got it. So now, as you continue to grow the conference, grow your career, you get many awards, get recognition, but then you also acquire some critics, or haters as we call them.
Sure.
How do you handle your critics?
Yeah. I think one of the things that, because looking back, it's been an interesting kind of period of my life, because I've been looking back at different situations or projects I've been a part of, and I typically, it's interesting to look back, because I find that I'm usually one of those type of people that's kind of the pioneer, like starting something.
Right.
And then it's interesting to see the common thread that, you'll find people that believe in the vision and, be part of the team. And then you'll have a few people that are like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? And to your point, that how do you handle that?
Right.
And so it's been a growth process, that's where it connects to the other question you had, because before I'd be like, what? That one person over there may not like my idea, but all these other people do, but I'll focus on that one person.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like, I feel like I've kind of just in my journey, it's everybody has their story, everybody has their own experience. And so sometimes when people are, the critics, whatever that, I've learned to kind of take a step back and not react and just go, okay, there's more to the story than what they're saying potentially, right?
Yeah.
It could be their own issues. Maybe their fear of failure, or, that's just their opinion, which is fine. And to learn to be focused in what I feel passionate about and what I feel I'm supposed to be doing. So it's been a growth process.
We are all growing, for sure. I find that many, many creatives have to have a strong sense of resilience.
Absolutely.
What is your definition of resilience? Do you have an example of maybe when you yourself had to show resilience to get to somewhere you wanted to be?
Resilience to me is all about just staying focused and bouncing back. And I think, in looking back, I'd say that, just take, for example, Epic, for example, that's, saying I'm going to, this is something I really want to do, is start a conference. It's like, you know what I mean? I got some people, they're like, what, are you crazy? Like, do you understand? And it's a lot of work. There's a lot of moving pieces, but it's, there's going to be setbacks. There's always going to be, challenges in any project. Right. And so I think for me, it's looking always, when you have those kind of moments, looking at the bigger picture and stepping out of the moment, because you'll have a good day, you'll have a bad day, right? But you really have to believe in what you're doing. And that's where I've kind of grown to land in all this, is what is it that I feel that I'm supposed to be doing, and having a team of people that believe,
right,
and really kind of bouncing ideas. For me, it's all about having people you trust around you, and collectively, getting advice and opinions, not being your own little island, but I think there's an important dynamic there that needs to be there, where you have people you bounce ideas on and make sure you're heading on the right path. So
understood. Tell us about the darkest time of your life. Mm-hmm. What did you learn from that situation, and how did you get through it?
Okay. So that, right there. I would say it probably is a few years ago. I lost my dad and my grandmother within 3 months.
Ooh, yeah, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and so it just was like, as you can imagine. So that was a very extremely challenging time, because I was still teaching and working and doing all that stuff. So what I learned out of that experience is how important it is to really be present with the people you love, and really just, when you're with people, just absorb the moment. And I think, going back to the other question you had, we're so distracted. And it's not just technology, it's just a lot of things in life. We're busy. So that's been my biggest lesson, is like, when I'm with people, just really trying to be there. And also the bigger picture, life is short, right? Mm-hmm. And we don't know.
We do not know.
And so for me, it was a wake-up call, going, okay, where am I heading? What do I want to do? Am I in a place in life where I feel like fulfilled? Or even if it's not the ultimate end, are there components that show and demonstrate to me that I'm on the right path, right? And then also just reprioritizing everything.
Right.
I think that was like a huge lesson around that time.
Was there anything that you changed, maybe professionally, moving forward after you went through that kind of adjusted your trajectory? Like, did you say, I'm going to try to create this or change this kind of job, or did you do anything like that?
I did, in a couple different ways. One, it was at that time that was before Epic.
Okay.
And so it was at that time where I realized that this is something I've been wanting to do. And so, now's the time.
Yes, it is.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think a lot of times, and I've done this in the past with different things as well. Like we have things we want to do and we're like, oh, maybe now it's not the right time, or, and it may not be, but I think sometimes we need to really sit with it, and maybe it is, it's that risk-taking part.
Yes.
And which is all about innovation, creativity too, right? And so that was a part of it. And then also realizing that I needed to pause more. I needed to reflect more, because it's just so easy to get on our train of life and then something happens to us or another person that we care about, and then we're like, gosh, I wish So I try to have those moments where even if it's like 10 minutes, it doesn't have to be a whole day, where I just literally, I'm like, okay, I just need to just go walk somewhere,
Yeah.
So
I'm curious, who was the most influential person for you growing up?
Hands down would be my grandfather.
All right.
Yeah, he was somebody that always would take me places, even if it was like around town. It didn't have to be a huge trip, but he did take me on road trips, around town. And he always was trying to expose me to new things. And he would tell me that, oh, look there's so much out there. Let's try this new thing. And he was the influence for me to pursue higher education. Like throughout all my schooling, he was always like, you need to go to college. And he would talk to me about it. It wasn't like this pressure thing, but it was more of like showing me the opportunities that could come out of that. And he was just kind of there step by step to walk me through that process. And it really just helped me see that there's more out there, so he was a huge influence.
Props to Granddad.
Yeah.
Nice. What do you find easy to do that your friends find hard to do?
Let's see. I would say I receive this comment a lot. Is how do you juggle it all?
Yeah, that one of my first questions to you.
So it's interesting, and I think looking back, it's kind of been this pattern even undergrad, where I was always the person trying. I managed all the concerts and events and talent shows as an undergrad, my student job, right? And I just fell into that pattern, and I think, and working with people, so that's a comment I receive a lot.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know, able to.
You can do it.
Be inspired by the various different projects. So yeah.
Many people have the perspective that you really should only really do one thing. You can't. You're not supposed to juggle. What's your response to that?
Well, yeah, no, I disagree. Everybody's wired differently, though.
Correct.
I will say that. Okay, so some people are very specialized in one thing, and I don't think there's a general answer for everybody. But for me, I just feel that I like to diversify what I do, and I think that fits for what I teach, the cross-pollination of activities and projects and the people I work with. So I feel like I'm in flow when I do that, personally. So.
I agree. I'm on Team Steve with that one, for sure. What would you like to be better at?
I would say, I would say just, right now there's so many things that I'm juggling. Just, I would say having more moments, like for me, when I think of pause practices, because I do pause, like I mentioned, but like spending more time outside, just because, as I talk about in my workshops and with students, there's a lot of research that shows being out in nature and movement enhances creativity. So I enjoy being outside too. So I think I'd want to be more disciplined in that. It's easy for me to go, okay, I'm going to take 10 minutes and go, another part of the house, or, what I mean?
Right.
But I think I would really like to dive more into that.
Excellent.
Be more disciplined. So
now, when you were 21, you're in Malibu, Pepperdine, going to school. So we're going to go back and talk to 21-year-old Steve. Ask him or give him advice based on what you know now. What advice would you give your 21-year-old self?
It's going to be okay. I think that, I don't know. I think there's at least in my experience, there's so much pressure, like coming out of undergrad.
Yes.
Like you have to have your career plan. You have to have, everything lined up. And I just remember feeling so like, it's almost paralyzing.
Yeah.
And just being able to to just, you know what I mean, take the right steps. I for some reason, looking back, I just felt like this pressure I had to have it all figured out. And so I'd go tell my 21-year-old self, you don't have to. Enjoy the journey.
Because we're always figuring it out.
Exactly.
Amen. What is the one lesson in life that took you the longest to learn?
Let's see. The one lesson in life that took me the longest to learn is that I guess it would be that I get kind of connected to a 21-year-old self, is that it's going to be okay, you know, because I tend to, I get so focused and I want it all to happen now. I guess it would be patience, really.
Yeah.
That it is a journey, and each part has its place, you know, and what you're doing, and, you know, so I think I'm a visionary, so I see where things could go, and if my journey has been not to get discouraged if we're not there yet. So
love it. As someone who struggles with patience and other people like me, what advice would you give us to grow our patience muscle, so to speak?
I would say looking back, look back at other moments where you saw connections. And I think that encourages you to move forward. At least that's how it's done for me. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, we're ever going to get there. And then I look back and I'm like, but wait, in this situation, look at how it turned out.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I like that advice. I'm going to try that. Every great person has a sentence. What is your sentence? For example, my sentence is, I love to help people unlock their creativity by teaching them how to DJ. What is your sentence?
Mine would be, he produces unique experiences to catalyze ingenuity.
All right. Yeah. I love that catalyze word too. Yes. What is one new habit that you've added to your daily routine in the past year or so that has been most beneficial?
I've taken the habit of, it's kind of like what I was talking about earlier, I've been really diving into just trying to find other sources of inspiration outside of my normal go-to areas. And that has been really good. That's helped me. Like if I go to a conference, I'll do a workshop that I'm like, I would never do that, but I do. And then there's some insight or aha moment, right? On a daily basis, I try to, like, whether that be, sources of inspiration, sites, websites or whatever, or articles or various resources. I try to go outside of my normal lane, so to speak.
Yes.
Because it's, I mean, that's what I teach, right? So it's practicing what I preach in that way, and it's really helped a lot. So,
what has been the most surprising source of inspiration that you've discovered that really caught you off guard and has been very beneficial?
I would say, let's see. I would say, going to events I typically don't go to.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I think that's, when looking back, that's been kind of the biggest aha, is like, why would I go there to that event or that networking event? Or, and it's interesting how that works out.
Definitely.
And it's been kind of a fun adventure to try those kind of new experiences. So,
is there one event that sticks out in your mind that comes to mind that really kind of caught you?
Yeah. I'm thinking, for example, I went to this one conference and, I did not, like, there was just some workshops that I was like, oh, they're not really, focused on higher ed or education or creativity. And I just remember finding little nuggets out of that. And it's mostly like the people, and it's like, there's some point that you're going to be able to connect with people. And then it's just organically, depending on the situation, it could lead to some interesting projects or conversations.
It definitely will.
Yeah.
Definitely. Now, we're very big readers here on the Money Experience podcast.
Yeah.
So if there's 1, 2, or 3 books you feel people should stop what they're doing right now and start to read them immediately, what books come to mind?
I would say the book would be, it's a short read. It's great. It's called The Element by Sir Ken Robinson.
Okay.
international thought leader on creativity and education.
Amazing TED Talk.
Yes, most watched, right? TED Talk, yeah. So it's all about when your natural talent meets your passion, what happens when you're in your element. And he does a fantastic job of exploring various successful people in their lives and when that happened for them, And I think that has been one of the inspirational reads for me.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, we'll add that to the show notes for sure. What has been the best advice you've ever received?
I would say stay the course for me. Yeah, because it's, again, being a visionary, it's like you see where you want to be, and it's a journey to get there.
It's not a straight line.
Yeah, no, and it's just kind of staying the course. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now, you a sports fan at all?
I'm more of an outdoor guy, so go hiking or do outdoor activities. So if it's a sports question, I don't know.
Well, it's a kind of it's a scenario. So we'll say they've invited you to speak. You're going to come to the Staples Center, walk out on the court and give a speech. As you're walking out on the court, what song is playing that brings you out? Your walk-up song. Yeah. How they can find you online, where do you like to live, and tell them if they want more information about Epic, where can they find that as well?
Absolutely. So I'm on LinkedIn, so that would be the primary place. That's kind of my social media go-to.
Yeah.
So you can find me on LinkedIn. And then as far as Epic goes, at epicsummit.com.
Simple as that.
Yeah, the event's March 26th through the 28th in Santa Barbara.
Awesome. Well, can't wait to be there. Before I ask you the final question, I just want to say thank you very much for taking time to come down. I know your schedule is busy, so I appreciate the time. The wisdom and advice you gave in our interview was great. I'm going to listen to it a few times, so I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. We let our guests take us home with the last-minute words of wisdom or advice, so I'll say thank you again and allow you to take us home.
All right. All right. I guess my closing words of advice would be to really just have moments to pause, to reflect where you've been, where you are, and think of what could I do differently. I think it's when we can try disrupting our habits and trying new experiences, we're going to have those creative moments. So that's my closing tip.
Love it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Armani Experience podcast. You can check out the show notes on armaniexperience.com/podcast. Please remember to leave us a review on the platform you are listening on and share this podcast with anyone who you feel would benefit from listening. See you soon for our next episode.